SoCal. He's the head coach of the USC Trojans, former Sacramento Kings head coach. Eric Musselman jumping on with the drive, guys. What's up, Coach? You're on with Kyle Draper and Henry Turner. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to join the drive, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, yeah, no problem, Coach. We got you on. Obviously, we want to talk about the Kings, talk about the offseason, obviously talk about what you've been up to down there at USC as you enter your second year. But I want to start with a workout. I guess a couple of guys from the Kings were out there working out at the Trojans facility the other day. Tell me about Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Mason Jones, and our boy Doug Christie down there as well.
Yeah, DeMar is in our building, quite often, whether it be to lift weights, whether it be to do, his individual, workouts. And obviously he was down at one end with some of the Kings player development coaches and Coach Christie was in and Zach and DeMar were getting some great work in prior to our practice. We go at 7:30 in the morning. Those guys showed up at 5:45 a.m. to start a workout at 6 and went to right up until we were about to start at 7:30. So and then DeMar was back at it again today. So, just two guys, that are, like from a prepared standpoint, from a professionalism standpoint, I mean, it's through the roof, their work ethic. You watch the footwork, the attention to detail, that's why these guys are so good at scoring the basketball and so good at the highest level that basketball has. And then Mason, obviously played for me at Arkansas, and Mason's here for the entire week. So, he was actually on the other side, getting a ton of work out in earlier than some of the other guys even got there. So it's been good. I mean, we kind of pride ourselves in trying to open up our doors to, NBA players and especially if it's a Trojan. I mean, DeMar has done so much for USC, donation to the weight room and has upgraded our facility so incredibly generous with things like that. So anytime we can get NBA guys in, last year we just had a ton of players in as the summer got a little bit deeper than what it is now, playing pickup ball from Trae Young to Durant. It was incredible. James Harden. We had a Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero. We had a ton of guys in here. And so it's great for our players to see the work ethic that these guys have. And the Kings did that last year as well. Coach Christie came down and they were going through some stuff with Sabonis and 3-man game actions that they were working off the elbow. So super cool to have NBA guys in our building and have an NBA coach in our building as well.
Coach E, Henry Turner here. I want to basically kind of piggyback off of that because you've been on both sides. You've been an NBA coach, you've been a college coach, but how good is that to have when, your guys that come in at 7:30, because when in college you be crying about 7:30. Man, I'm not trying to be here at 7:30. but when they get to walk in at 7:30 and understand that DeMar DeRozan been here since 5, really understand that what we doing, we still got to step our game up.
Yeah, Henry. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's funny that you say that because the day before is when they were in. So I walked in today and I go up there about 20 minutes before practice. And, guys over on the side, he's acting like he's stretching, not really stretching. And so I started off today's practice just talking about that. Like, how can a guy going into what his 18th year or whatever that never misses a mid-range shot, that's a great ISO player, that's a great mid-post player, how is he coming in so much earlier than you other guys? He's proven, he's got money. His career's been well solidified, and you guys are all trying to somehow not make it, but just get an opportunity to put yourself in a position to maybe make an NBA roster. And Henry, how hard it is to actually make the league. It's like hard. Like there's a lot of great players that are playing in the G League, a lot of great college players that can't get out of the G League. So it is really important for our guys to see that, to be able to marinate the thought process And then you hope that just, one of your 12 guys, wakes up and says, wow, this is the work ethic. This is what it takes. And then some other guys, they're probably still wondering why we're going at
7:30. Coach Eric Musselman joining us, former Sacramento Kings coach, Golden State Warriors coach, also coached Mason Jones at Arkansas. Coach, I want to ask you about Mason Jones, obviously back there working out with you down there at USC in the facility. A lot of fans up here are high on Mason Jones. They see the potential. When you look at Mason, his game, his style, what do you see on the floor?
Well, when Mason had played for Coach Mike Anderson the year before I got to Arkansas, and he had a pretty good year. I think he averaged like 11.5 points a game. And probably in the third or fourth practice, and we had on that team Isaiah Joe, who's, currently one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA and playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But we felt like Mason was a unique matchup because at the collegiate level, we could play him at the 4-3-2, but he was really our point guard. We had a non-shooting point guard named Jimmy Witt that we put in the dunker spot, and so we kind of inverted our offense. Mason Jones led the country in free throws attempted. You're talking about co-MVP of the SEC, and the SEC produces more pros per year in the last 10 years than any other league. So Mason's really special. The hard part for a player that's going back and forth between the G League, NBA, and trying to find his niche is oftentimes in the NBA, the scores are already solidified. And so you're trying to figure out how to fit in when you're already playing or on an NBA roster with other great scorers. And so that becomes a tricky role play that guys have to figure out and make an adjustment, because Mason's a great scorer. He's got 3-point range. He can beat people off the dribble. He's an underrated passer. He's got toughness, and probably his greatest trait is that he believes he's better than almost anybody and it doesn't matter what game. You can put him in any game. He thinks he's better than whoever's going against him. So, but sometimes, you look at some of the all-time great role players, guys like Udonis Haslem, who was a great screen setter, a guy that didn't need the basketball in his hands, somebody that could play with other superstars and his game could complement. It is a little bit trickier for guys that are bona fide scorers. We have Nick Smith coming in on Friday. Nick's with Charlotte. He was a first-round draft pick. And, like for Nick, he's proven now that he can score the ball in an NBA game. And in his words, it's like, hey, coach, the defense, like I got to get back to having that defensive mentality and prove that I can now defend at that level. So I think it's really cool when a player can kind of identify what he needs to do to have a long NBA career, and then he wants to go to work on it even in the off season, because obviously training camp's a long way away, but these guys are still thinking about how they can perfect their craft.
Joined by Coach Eric Musselman. Coach, let's stay right there with Mason Jones real fast, because you have been, as Henry Turner said, you've had your eye on all levels of basketball, general manager. I mean, you've seen it all when it comes to basketball. How does Mason Jones stick in the NBA according to Coach Musselman?
I think just understanding, and I think he will, because he's so talented. I think it's for a lot of guys that are can score the ball. It's how do I fit in with other surrounding pieces? How do I do the little things? And like I mentioned, like he is a great passer when the ball's in his hands. And the question is, what's his true position? And it's probably a natural two guard. And then for all guys that are not automatically in a rotation, it's, defending your position at an elite high level. That becomes super, super important as well. And then opportunity. Probably the most important thing is getting an opportunity, being on a roster that needs a player in your position. And then as a player gets older and older and is more years removed from his collegiate experience, is, do you have a coach? Do you have a general manager that allows an older player? I mean, many, many years ago, Sam Mitchell was like a 26-year-old rookie for the Timberwolves, and then ended up being a great mentor to guys like Kevin Garnett. And so, finding the right place at the right time becomes super important.
Now, I must want to ask you this, because you go all the way back to the CBA with your pops and everything. And, we had a conversation earlier today. LeBron James was talking about, ring culture, ring culture. At the end of the day, in basketball, is there anything else other than a championship ring?
Well, I do think when you're playing, coaching, front office, everything that you do is about, like, how do you win a championship? How do you get a ring? But if you just take, like the current NBA playoff situation that's going on between Indiana and Oklahoma City, like, one of them is going to win, obviously, and one of them's not. But I don't necessarily think that if Indiana doesn't overcome, Oklahoma City and the home court advantage, now, does that mean their season is a failure? I don't think so, because really success is about, like you could even be an 8th seed, and it could be a successful season if your team overachieves, if your team plays hard every night, if they share the ball, if they have a good brotherhood, a good basketball bonding style of play on the court. So I think all of us want to win championships all the time. I know, like, in the collegiate level, when I got the job at Arkansas, it was not about winning the SEC championship. It was about, how do we get into the NCAA tournament? How do we have as good a seed as we possibly can? But most importantly, how are we fresh mentally and physically to try to make a run in the NCAA tournament? And it's the same thing in the Big Ten. Like, I would rather figure out rotations, maybe lose a game early in the Big Ten, get yourself ready for the second half of the season, and then hope that you can play for the ultimate prize, which is what everybody's striving for.
USC Trojans head coach Eric Musselman joining us here on The Drive, guys. Coach, you're entering your second year there in USC, second year for the program in the Big Ten. It's the era of the transfer portal. You spent a lot of time there at Arkansas, Nevada, obviously. How has the portal impacted your job? And NIL, I guess I'll throw in there as well.
Well, the portal hasn't really affected, our mentality at all, because we were, I think the first guy that really dove into the transfers was really Fred Hoiberg. And he did it at Iowa State, and he did it at a high level. And then when I got the job at Nevada, our thought process was, hey, it's going to be really hard to get McDonald's All-Americans. It's going to be really hard at Nevada to get 5-star athletes. And actually, Jordan Brown from Sacramento was the first 5-star athlete on Nevada's campus. But that was once we got later on and had built the program up. So we went all transfers our first 3 years, and we got Cody and Caleb Martin, guys like Jordan Caroline. So the transfers, that was even before the portal had a name. It was guys would transfer, they'd have to sit out. You could work with them for a year, which I absolutely loved. And so the portal aspect doesn't affect us at all. I think a lot of it, and I mentioned Coach Hoiberg, I think if you've coached at the professional level, and maybe more importantly, if you've ever coached at the minor league level, whether it's CBA, USBL, NBA G League, you know that there's rosters, players are coming and going, guys are getting called up, guys are getting sent down. So there's no, you flinch. I mean, you just keep moving. Who's here? Move. Get that guy better. Try to get the team as cohesive as possible in as quick amount of time. Now, the name, image, and likeness, that is definitely been a huge adjustment. And it kind of, I look at the name, image, and likeness, really taking this last class is the class that I looked at that really was the first to really earn a big income. We had 3 one-and-dones at Arkansas a few years ago. Anthony Black, Nick Smith was a first rounder, Jordan Walsh. They were all one-and-dones. One lottery pick, one late first, and one early second. those guys, their name, image, and likeness was a pretty minimal. And it was actually the way that it was intended to be. Anthony Black gets a $25,000 bad boy mower deal, and it was legitimate. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Anthony went and 3 hours from Fayetteville, spent the day, doing photo shoots, and that's true name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
And then this past class, it's completely changed. And really, think about any of us, if we were in college and you were making, maybe the most money that you'll ever make in your life, how does that affect your life in later years? Like once you're done in college, I think it's great that you're able to make the money, but now you got to save the money, and you've got to have great surrounding inner circle to try to help you invest and understand that, hey, I'm only playing 30 games. Like people keep talking about all these numbers, and, in football, college football compared to the NFL, pretty similar in the number of games, obviously 4 or 5 more football games in the NFL. But in basketball, you're talking about 30 games in college. We're still we can only work with our guys 4 hours in the summer and only for 8 weeks. So you think about the money that they're earning compared to the number of hours, that they're at. It's literally the greatest job in the world. So that aspect is, you got to recruit the right people. You got to recruit people that understand what all this is about. And it's amazing because even I was with Blake Snell last night, who pitches for the Dodgers, and he was talking about, even as a pro, when you have a great year, how you got to get your drive back. You got to figure out, what am I doing with my money? Separate how I got to work and prepare for my job on a daily basis.
Man. Joined by Coach Eric Musselman. Last one for me, Coach. You, speaking of being USC and one of the faces of USC, and now at this point, Los Angeles, you've put in so much work, tireless effort. You've dedicated your life for the most part to basketball. I believe you are one of the premier coaches in college. I know it's a little selfless to say that, but how do you feel kind of being like one of the faces of college basketball now as a head coach for USC?
I look at myself still as like a sewer rat, somebody that's just trying to survive and scrap out the next win. But I do understand. This is my third time being in LA. I did the Lakers G League team right out of college from the University of San Diego. I sold tickets for the Clippers. And then got elevated to an assistant personnel director spot, and now back for my third time living in LA. We love California, so it was a job that for us, like Arkansas is a great basketball job, not a good one. It's a great job, and obviously, once we came here, what did Arkansas do? They turned around and got a Hall of Fame coach in the true. One of the true 1 or 2 faces of college basketball, and John Calipari. But for us, for my family, for my daughter, for my 2 sons, my wife, this makes the most sense for us. And then USC's got such a great brand, both academically, athletically, and we got work to do too. Like we're not just trying to build a team. We've got to really market. We've got to draw better crowds than we did this past season. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to go into this thing to make it the success of what we visioned. And at Nevada, sold out buildings our last 3 years, being ranked 17 weeks in the top 10. When you're at Nevada, that's really hard to do. 2 Elite Eights, 3 Sweet 16s at Arkansas. So we're playing in a really, really good conference. And we're probably in the whole 3 to 4 games, meaning UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon, based on our travel. And so you got to do what USC women's team did and what UCLA women's team did. They went out and got the most talent, and then the travel didn't really matter. I mean, the X and O's, the travel, if you got Juju Watkins, everything's good, right?
but Eric, come on, man. You got to admit, the last name Musselman reigns supreme in basketball, bro.
Yeah, but it's super cool to hear stories about my dad as a coach, and obviously Michael Thompson does the some of the Lakers, voice of the Lakers, and he played for my father. And to run into people in LA that Pooh Richardson was the first round lottery pick that played for my dad. And so it is super, super cool to walk in these circles and hear stories about my dad. And now my two sons are both coaches, and both want to kind of follow in what I've done and what my dad's done. And the one thing nobody can take away is my dad and I were the first fathers and sons in the history of the NBA to be head coaches. So that's a super, super cool thing,
That's our guy, Eric Musselman, head coach down there at USC, the Trojans, entering his second year running things with the Trojans. Coach, we appreciate you coming on. Please tell Danielle and the family we said hi, man, and we'll have to catch up with you again soon.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks so much.
All right, Eric Musselman right there, former Sacramento Kings head coach, Golden State Warriors head coach. And like you said, that Musselman name,
oh, man,
you're going back decades.
Yeah.